welcome everyone to the Feathers workshop where we're going to be building a real-time chat application with FeathersJS. With FeathersJS, we could make web applications fly faster to the cloud. So firstly, introduction to Coders for Causes. We are an organization that helps nonprofit organizations and charities by using student volunteers and connecting them to projects. And my name is Frinze, and I'm a committee member. And I have the other two committee members right here with me, Drew Alexander, the Presidente, and Daphne, the Secretary. Okay, I guess we should start now. So the prerequisites of this workshop, so I would assume that you know like a minimum knowledge of HTML, the markup language of the web, JavaScript, the programming language of the web, and also Node.js. So Node.js is just simply a platform for running JavaScript outside of the browser. I would also assume that you know a basic programming. As far as I know, there's no while loop or for loop or even if conditions here, but you know, it's just good that you know the understanding of programming for this workshop. It's also good to know that you know Express. Express is a library for creating server applications in the platform Node.js. So I'll just clarify that one. Feathers is a library on top of Express that adds functionality or extends functionality of Express. And Express is a library for creating server applications deployed in Node.js. And Node.js is a platform for running JavaScript outside of the browser. All right. It's good to know that you have some knowledge of REST APIs, Websockets, and also package managers, or in this case, Node Package Manager for JavaScript. But that's just good to know because I'm going to be explaining that later on in this workshop. Okay, first of all, what are we actually going to do today? So I'm going to be demonstrating a chat application that we're going to be building today. I'm going to explain what is Feathers, and we're going to have our interactive workshop where we're going to be coding a chat application, the interface, the Feathers backend, and also we're going to explain why are we going to choose Feathers over any other things that are created for server applications. And next one is we're going to explore what's the pathway after learning Feathers. All right. So firstly, we're going to have a demonstration. So I have a demo here that I created. I'm going to load it here. All right, it's this one. We're going to have a authentication, a login, email, and password, or you could just log in with GitHub. You could visit this URL right now, which is posted in the slides, as well as announcements in Discords and Facebook. So as you can see here, it's a chat application. You could send some messages, and it's all happening in real time. And even if you register right now or create login with GitHub, your name is going to appear at the left-hand side. So this is a chat application that I just built in just a few days using Feathers. But this is not going to be what we're building today because this is a little bit complex because it's taking into account your Vector interface, your authentication. So what are we actually building today? So we're going to be building this one. This is the one that we're going to be building today. It's still the same chat application, and it's going to be happening in real time. Take a look. Yeah. So I hope you look forward to it. So first of all, what is Feathers? So Feathers is a framework for real-time applications and REST APIs. It's a wrapper around your application. You could think of it as like a portal for data, simply. So you're going to have like an interface. So in our case, we're going to have a chat application interface. And then it's going to be using Feathers to transfer messages over to the server and databases. And and also Feathers is going to facilitate transferring from data from the server, then another interface. So yeah, that's basically the simple explanation of it. And you're going to find out more about it. So what does this mean for us if we're using a library for this real-time application? It means that we can build prototypes in minutes and production-ready apps in just a few days. And this is serious. So as you can see from the demo, this demo was just created for a few days. And this demo is what we're going to be building today. And we have a timeline of 1 hour and 30 minutes. But don't worry about it. We can handle that in just a few minutes. So that's what Feathers is all about. So I guess let's start coding. So you're going to be given a CodeSandbox link here. This is your coding environment where we've already set out the files that you're going to use and the libraries that you're going to use. So just to get there, yep. The link is already on Discord and Facebook. So let's just go there. This link. So just go there, and this is going to be your sandbox. You're going to fork this one. You're going to sign in first. You could sign in with Google or GitHub. Let's just go back there. Okay. Once you got that set up, just raise your hand so that I know who's already got it set up. To be able to verify that it's working, you could take a look at the right-hand side, and it's going to say this things. The CodeSandbox? Oh, yes. It is, it is. Yes. So the code for today will be here. So yeah, at any point in time that you want to see what I do at each specific stage, just go to the commits. Yes. Actually, let me just check. But the code is actually the last slide. So yeah, the link is at the last slide. Okay. Who has not gone to the CodeSandbox? So everybody good? Are we waiting for somebody? Okay, yep. To the people in Zoom, have you all set up the CodeSandbox already? So the way to do it is just to fork it, and it's going to ask you to sign in. And then you just sign in with either Google or GitHub, and then you're going to be able to fork this entire thing. It's going to be giving you all the files that we're going to be using for today and the starting code. So are we waiting for anybody here? We're good to go? Okay. So let's start. So first of all, we're going to be creating our interface. Our interface is just a simple HTML file that you could just see from the code right here. And let me just, so first of all, we're gonna have an interface, which is covered by a tag main. And it's going to have an ID main and class container. And this is just for styling. As you can see right here, there's a CDN here for CSS. If you don't know what CSS is, it's basically, it's called the cascading style sheets, which is used for designing or making things pretty in the web. And that's importing classes that is going to implement some designs. Okay. So inside our main container, we're going to have a div, and there's going to be, the ID of this would be chat. Inside of this, we're gonna have a header, and I guess we could just say, welcome to Feathers chat application. So inside of this, we're gonna have a form, and the class will be form. We're not going to have an action because we want the form to submit a JavaScript, basically run a JavaScript on submit. And okay, yep. So on submit, we want on submit of a form, we're going to be sending a message. This is going to be the name of our function that we have not yet created, but we will create it later. So let's just put that for now. Then inside, we're going to have an input tag. And it's going to be of type text. I guess we could put a placeholder here, maybe enter a message. And we're going to have an ID called message text. And this is going to be useful later when we're going to be extracting the data from there. And the next one, we're going to have a button. And it's going to be of type submit, so that when this button has been clicked, it will submit the form. And the name of the button will be send a message. Let's also give some, I guess, some design, button and button primary. Next, we're going to have a div that will contain our messages later on. Yep. Yep. So I guess that's our code for now. So everybody good here? That's it. Increase the font a bit. There we go. So all good, guys? So as you can immediately see right now, we are unable to see what it looks like. So the next one we're going to be discussing is how do devices actually communicate in the internet? This is weird. I'm just going to be using this one. Okay. So how do devices communicate with in the web? In simpler answer, they communicate using the internet. But exactly how do they communicate to the internet? So first of all, you're going to have an interface. Let's say, for example, your computer. They're going to be sending a request in the cloud, then the cloud going to the server. That request will be specific, and it's called a GET request. And this happens when you visit a specific website link. Let's say, for example, you have this website and you're visiting that. It's going to be counted as a GET request from the user interface up to the server. And the server is going to say, hey, this is a GET request on this link. So the server is going to be responding with HTML and CSS. So the HTML that we created right here at the moment will be sent to the server. But at the moment, we have not created the server application yet. And we're going to be creating it in this file called app.js. So that's the next one that we're going to be doing. So first of all, how do we create a server applications? So you're going to be installing a packages and you're going to be including it. But for your CodeSandbox that we've prepared, you no longer need to type this commands because if you don't use CodeSandbox or you're using another environment such as VS Code, and you want to recreate that same environment, you're going to have to type this one. And what this command basically does is it's going to be creating this package.json file. This package.json file is basically summarizing what's going to be the libraries included in our server applications. So these are the three things that you're going to be able to see. And those are the libraries that we're going to be using. So let's try to include those files. It's going to be that one. Okay. So let's start. So the minimal code for creating a server application is by using Express, the library. And this is the syntax, in case you're not familiar. And there's going to be an auto-suggest. Just click Express. And we're going to be creating an application, basically a server application. It's going to be running like this. So what this tells us is that we're creating a server application and we're storing it in a variable called app. Next, we want to be able to serve our static files. The static files that we have currently is the index.html file. We want to be able to serve that file. So the syntax for that one is app.use express.static your name. You don't have to memorize this codes because these codes can be found in the documentation for Feathers and Express. So you just have to know what it actually does. So what it does is that it serves static files from the directory, from the path of this directory in the server. So next, what we're going to be needing is that we're going to want the server to be listening on a specific port. So as you know with Python, when you type Python main.py and main.py is your script file, what's going to happen is that your computer is going to be running that main.py script. So in the same case, if I just open this preview, every time I save this, oh, this is weird. Every time I save this, it's going to be running this specific line, node app.js. So similarly for Python, Python main.py. So the thing is, at the moment, our app.js is only running this line. And then after running that, it's going to exit. So what we want to do is to be able to make the server listen on a specific port. So we're going to put it on port 3030. And it's going to take a function that's going to run. And it's just a function that's going to run when it starts listening. And we're going to say feathers server running on localhost 3030. So if I save that one and refresh this, this is going to be serving our index.html file. All good for now there? Drew, could you help Laura? So everybody got this working? So a server serving an HTML file. Any problems? Yes. Okay. Just a side note, our start script is nodemon. What nodemon is basically just doing is every time we press Control S or save, it's going to be running node app.js. So basically it just makes this like a real-time thing. So every time we're trying to save, it's going to change our preview. So currently, as you can see at the moment, if I type here and send a message, you just refresh. So what we want to add here is event.prevent default. Let's just save that and refresh. It's still refreshing, but we're going to be handling that later on. Okay. So at the moment, what we have is we have a server that is serving a static file called index.html. So next thing that we're going to be doing is we want to create a feathers applications. So the way to do it is if we just have it on its own, it's going to be this. If you want feathers on top of Express, we're going to be doing this. But for now, we're going to be staying with this. Okay? So let's just complete that code, and we're going to be explaining what services are in Feathers. So just complete this one. Feathers is equal to require. Okay. I'll just explain what libraries we're including at the moment. So as you can see here, it's we're importing express on this variable. And if you take a look at this one, it's FeathersJS/express. This is the version of Express that has been extended by Feathers. And similarly for Socket.io. This is the Socket.io version that is extended by Feathers. And this one is actually the main Feathers library. Okay. So at the moment, let's just comment this code out. Because what we want to show to you first is what Feathers actually do before being served into a server. Okay? Next, we're going to be creating a services. So first of all, what are services? Services are the heart of every applications. So basically, it functions like a portal of data. And it's modeled upon our CRUD operations. So if you've done some sort of database systems, you're going to know a little bit about the CRUD operations. It's basically the basic functionalities for any data interaction. So recall with servers, servers actually just facilitates data transfer from the database up to the interfaces. So our front ends. So this is a service. So it's going to be containing our methods that models on the CRUD operations. Find and get are modeled upon the read. Find is basically finding all the items in a specific page, or basically finding a group of items. Get is getting a specific item. So in our case, it's going to be getting a specific message, but find is getting all the messages. Then create, it's the create in the CRUD. Update and patch goes with update, and remove is with the delete. So formally, a service is an object or an instance of class that implements certain methods. So let's creating our first service. So we're going to have a class, and we're going to be calling it message service. And we're going to have a constructor. The constructor is just going to contain our messages. But in terms of when you're trying to model it on a production application, this portion of the constructor is actually going to connect to a database. So next, we're going to have some methods. It's going to be an asynchronous method. So I'll just explain the asynchronous part after creating the entire service. So what find basically does, it's going to return our entire messages. And we're going to have get, which will have a parameter ID. Then it's going to return a specific message. And then we're going to have a method called create, which is going to create, get a data as a parameter or argument. Then it's going to create a message. That message, for now, we're going to give it an ID upon the message length. So basically the array length. And then we're going to give it a text, and that's going to be the data.text. So it's going to get an object that has a field called text. Next, we're going to be appending this message that we created. And then we're going to return the message that we created. Missing a what? Ah, yes, that messages. So it is a convention that whenever you create a message or create basically something in the database, you're going to return that thing that you created. So it's going to be this. So I'll just explain what asynchronous is. So in the web and also any database interaction, things might not run synchronously. So in this case, when our server is communicating with the database, the server is using CPU to process this one, which is faster than the connection of the server to the database. That's something that we have to take note of. Most of the time, you're going to have awaits. You're going to be awaiting a database operation to be able to complete this. That's why most of the time services is going to have methods that are asynchronous. So now let's attach that service that we created to our application. This is how we attach it. Just say app.use, and the route it's going to belong. And we're going to create a new services. Now, let's test what we have so far. So there's two main syntax of creating a JavaScript function. We're going to have the functional way to do it and your most common way to do it, which is similar to the other language. So what we're going to be doing to be testing this service that we created is that we're going to create a message, and then we're going to get those messages just to simulate that everything is working. And we're going to type this for now at our server. So let's create a message. It's going to be an object. This one, we're going to be passing that has a field text, and I guess let's say hello feathers. Then let's create another message. And you say hello again, or hello world. That's one is a classic one. Okay. Now after creating those messages, let's actually grab them. And let's console log it so that we could take a look if we've gotten the message that we created. Okay, then let's call that function. Okay. Something you can immediately see here is that after I restarted the server, which is by pressing Ctrl+S, saving it, you're going to be able to see here this console log, all messages, and our two objects that we created. So at the moment, as you can see, we defined some functions that is going to be modifying our variable, or in an actual use case, it's going to be modifying a database. But for our purpose, it's just a variable. So these codes are the one that does it. But this is only useful if those codes are in the front end. because this is the one that facilitates data transfer from our front end to our database. Just wait a second, guys. There we go. This is weird. Nice. I think it's all good. I don't know what happened. Well, okay. So at the moment, as you can see, it works. But we want that code in our front end, not in our back end. So let's just erase that one for now. So what we want to be able to do is to be able to basically expose our back end. We want to what's happening with these projectors? Okay, let's get back to the topic. So what we want to be able to do is to expose those services to REST APIs. So you might be asking, what is a REST API? A REST API, or also known as an application programming interface. So let's go back and let's go to the concept of a user interface. A user interface is the start of any interaction of the user towards a machine. An application programming interface is an interface to start interaction of a server to another service. Could be a front end, could be another application. So here's an example. So here's an example of an application programming interface, which is basically getting data from a Bitcoin server. So this is what's called a GET request. So a POST request is when I send data over there. It's going to be modifying that. So essentially, what we want is something like that. We want our messages to be exposed like that, and we want to be able to serve or basically support POST requests that can add more data here. And as you can see here at the moment, this one are basically the service methods and the HTTP equivalents of it and the path. Next I want to discuss is service events and WebSockets, because it's going to make sense once I explain this. So every services, so the service that we created is also an event emitter. So basically, when a create is called, there's an event that is emitted. And that event that is emitted could be transferred over WebSockets. If you don't know what WebSockets is, it's basically this tunnels of data for real-time transfer, real-time data transfer. So it's going to look like this. So you're going to have your client, and you have your services over here, which is connected by your REST APIs and your WebSockets. Now let's expose that one. We're going to be changing this to Express Feathers. So we have our Feathers application being passed over to our Express server. And then what we want to be able to do is to expose those REST APIs to our server application, which is just done in this one line of code, just this magical code. All right. Next, what we want to be able to do is to expose those vectors are weird. Want to express, want to expose to socket. So it's this line of code. It will do these two things. So it's a very powerful line of code. So next, this was able to expose the entire REST application. So it's going to expose all your services, but for socket, it's not yet finished. This is only partially exposed. So what we want to be able to do is to do some socket channels. So the easier way to think about socket channels are, like for example, this room and the Zoom channel here at the moment. So if I type a message here in Zoom, the people here won't know. At the same time, if I mute my message, if I mute the mic here, only the people in this room will hear me. So that's basically what socket channels do. So what it means for us is that the messages that we have are restricted on a specific channel only. But for this purpose of this workshop, we're only going to be creating a channel for everybody. So this line of code that you can see here at the moment, app.onConnection, which means that if any user interface or any front end connects to the server, it's going to run this one. It's going to give us a parameter called connection. Next, it's going to create a channel called everybody and let that somebody connect to this channel. So this is going to be useful for when you have authentication, because you only want some people to be hearing some messages if they're on a particular channel. And next, we're going to be publishing that channel. So let's just go that one. App.onConnection. That channel, we're going to be creating a channel called everybody. And we want that somebody who joined that channel to go to this everybody channel. All right. So this will facilitate every real-time interaction that we're going to be having. So first, let's actually test our REST API. So the way to test it is to just grab this URL that you have over here, paste it here. You should see your application. Let's just refresh that. Oh, yeah, that's why. It's because I didn't comment this out. So yeah, just uncomment that code that we wrote earlier. So our server should be listening at that port and serving here. Okay, there we go. Let's just refresh this one. And I guess let's create some messages. Let's get that main function again, or I guess let's just turn this an asynchronous function, and it's going to create some messages that we can see. Okay. This message should be served in the REST API, which you could access by typing messages. So it's the route messages. Let's see you. Hmm? Let's just see that one, what's happening. This is weird. Let's just debug it really quick. Let's create a main function. Alright, let's just try that again. After configure express this.
Was there a way to like skip ahead to like where you went out like the big stuff?
Not that I know of. I wasn't able to actually set that one up. Yeah, but the code is on the slides. Let's just take a look what's happening here. So this is the server channel. This is a middleware. Hang on a sec, I'm just debugging this. Let me just check the code that I created for this one. Okay, now I know why. Something that to note of is that the attachment of the services should come after exposing or opening this. So it's going to come right here. And this middlewares. So middleware is in the bit, as the name suggests, it's in the middle of the application and also our main services. So this should go right here. So this one are near the socket IOs. Okay, let's just save that. Let's try it again. Okay, there we go. As you can see, it's serving our REST APIs, so our messages over the APIs, and this is the message that we created right over here. So as you can see here at the moment.
For a second, I need to try and unjoin this thing from the room next door. I think we're just trying to work out how to actually do it. Just wait a minute.
Sorry guys.
Connected to the room next door, so yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't actually know what was happening earlier. It's like,
Yeah, well, we were trying to do it from our side, and it was just messing with your system.
oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly run over there and see if that fixed it.
Okay. Let us continue from that disruption. Okay. So recall at the moment we have a server that is serving REST APIs here. So at the moment, as you can see, we were able to transfer data over this portion. Now, what we want to be able to do is our interface to use this data over here. But we're going to be using feathers, which basically imports the function that we created, like for example, app.create, app.service.create. So like this. Okay. So let's try creating that one. So first of all, what we want to be able to do is initialize our Feathers application on the front end. So socket, let's just initialize socket. Then let's initialize our Feathers application. It's similar to what we did earlier, but we were doing it in the server. Now we're doing it in the front end. And let's configure this one. We are going to be combining our Feathers application with Socket IO so that we have that real-time communication. Next, what we want to have is that we want to have a function that will send message. So this one, let's create that one. So it's just cons send message async because we want it to be an asynchronous function. And next, we're going to be grabbing the message input, which is basically document.getElement by ID. And the ID that we're getting is message.text. So let's go at the top. So this is the input that we're trying to get, this text box, and it has an ID message.text. So this is the one that we're grabbing. Next, what we want to do is to create a message. So that's a similar syntax that we created in the server. It's just app.services.messages.create. And let's pass a text field. And we're going to be putting the message input value here. Okay. After creating a message, let's empty that message text box. Okay. So let's just test it. So let's refresh this one. Send the message. The moment it's not displaying the messages, but let's check the messages REST API. It's this message. Let's try another one. Okay, let's check that again. So as you can see here at the moment, the server is able to receive data that we're getting at the front end. Now, what we want to be able to do is get this data that we created, as well as to update the interface in real time, because we don't want the user to be refreshing this every time. So the way to do it is that we're going to have a function that we're going to call addMessage. And it's going to take a parameter called message. And it's going to do a document.getElement by ID. So it's going to get this item. And it's basically going to append our messages there. So the ID is message list. And .inner.html are equal to our message. We want a t tag over there, a paragraph. And inside, we're going to put our variable value called message. Okay? So that's it. Now, what we want also is that every time, or basically when you visit the website, you're going to be able to grab all the messages that has been already sent in the server. So we're going to do it as a main function. And it's going to grab all the messages that we have in our server. So await app.service, our messages service, and find everything. Next, for every message that we find, we're going to add it. So if, this is some advanced JavaScript, but I'm just going to explain it in a little. So this is an array of messages, and for every element in that messages, it's going to pass it as a parameter in this function called add message. All good so far? Okay. So let's test that one. So let's refresh that. Yeah. Let's send message. Oh yeah, I did not call main. So there we go. Let's call the main. Let's refresh this. The message this. Let's just take a look at our handy console, see what's happening. Await is only valid on async function. Okay, there we go. This is an async function. Now let's refresh that one. Again, it's taking an object. So it's actually message.text. Because remember, our service is storing an object of messages that has a field called text. So let's refresh that, restart, and let's send some messages. There you go. Some messages are there. Well, every time we put a message, we have to refresh. So let's just fix that one. So remember with the service emitters, the event emitters, there's this one that we can type app.service in the messages. And if something has been created, so on created, we're going to run this function. So remember in our server application, we're returning that message. This is basically what it's being received. So once something has been created, it returns the message, then it becomes a parameter here to add that message to our interface. Okay, so let's try that again. This is weird. Let's save that. Okay. Hello. There we go. Let's try that again. There we go. So as you can see here at the moment, it's actually working now. So we have a chat application that's where we can send a message going through the server, storing those messages in the server, and then relaying that message into the other interfaces. So if you connect to this URL here at the moment, you're going to be able to see these messages. You can even send messages here. So I guess that's the end of the interactive portion of our workshop. So now let's discuss why would you choose Feathers over the other ones? So first of all, receiving data. So this is a comparison between Feathers on Express and Express alone. As you can see here at the moment, there's not really much of a big difference, except for the authentication. So for the Feathers, authentication is handled just as long as you've already configured the authentication. But for Express, even though you have the authentication handled, you're still going to have to send the authentication bearer token to the server. It's okay if it doesn't make sense to you at the moment. This is just a comparison of two things. So at the front end level, it's not that different. Aside from the fact that the functions that you created the server, you can also call it in the front end. So let's see the server side. So here at the left-hand side, we actually created a service. And we exposed that. We have a REST API, and we have sockets. But here at the right side, what you have to do for Express is that you have to create the controllers. So that's similar to those services. After creating those controllers, which is basically manipulating our data, we're going to expose that to our routes. So let's just zoom in over there. So our routes. So we're creating a route for every endpoint that we want. A GET request, this is for find, this is for GET, and this is for post. And then we're exposing that router that we created to the messages. But Feathers actually handles that for us automatically. So next one is hooks. So you might not be familiar with hooks. So basically, hooks is just something that actually hangs over your routers, basically your endpoints. They are functions that runs before, after, or on error of a specific route. And this is very useful for, let's say, for example, you have authentication. Maybe in the message service, you only want people that are authenticated to be able to send message, to be able to get messages. So this is where it comes useful. As you can see here on Feathers, you're just going to have this one, and you're going to have your service methods here, and you're going to have a function here to authenticate, and this is a function that will run for all. But for Express alone, this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to put your authenticate function right over here for this function. And you're going to have a try catch here. You're going to have your main processors here, your after hooks here, and your error hooks here. And this is only for one router. Yeah. Feathers was able to put it in everything for all. So you're going to have to put that in all the routes if you're going to want hooks or basically authentication for those services. So I guess this is another one. Here's a demo that it's okay if you don't follow, but what if I could tell you that you could create a Feathers application with full API endpoints that supports query params with basic error handlings, real-time sockets in just under 8 minutes. So I guess that's some pretty convincing things if I was able to do that. So remember in our slide here, we said you can build prototypes in minutes and production-ready apps in days. So I guess this is the ultimate reason why you're going to want to use Feathers. So let's start on that one. So there's such thing as what's called a Feathers code generator. So I'm going to create a directory. Let's just call it Feathers test. Let's go to that one. And I could type this magical code called Feathers generate. So let's just wait for that one. At the moment, you could time me or something. If I could do it in 8 minutes. My computer is just slow. But what we want to be able to do is we actually want to model this database. I've created this database already with 3,101 records. So we want to be able to create our REST APIs here and also socket connection if we can. So let's just go back to our terminal line. Okay, it's asking me if I want JavaScript or TypeScript. I want JavaScript, project name, description. Let's just leave it like that. What package manager? Let's go with NPM. And we want REST APIs and real-time with sockets. And we're not going to be doing any testing for today, so let's just leave it to that. We can have authentication, but for this purpose of the demo, we won't. It's going to generate us an application. So let's just open this in VS Code so that I could show you. cd feathers test. Actually, let's open that in VS Code. So it's going to generate us this file. This files, configuration, your node modules, basically your libraries, your public, basically your index.html and static files, source files, and tests. Yep. Let's increase the font size. So another portion is that, as you've seen today, we were creating service. Now what we want to be able to do is to be able to create those services. But let's just wait for this one. The moment, what's my time? 1 minute 50 seconds. So yeah, this is basically the life of coding with feathers. You just wait for these things and you customize it. So while we're waiting for that one, let's just grab some things. So this is the link for my database. I'm going to be, I want the connection string to that database, the secure connection string. So let me just put that on my clipboard. Okay, let's just see if it's done. Still going. Okay, it's almost done. Almost there. Next, the code that we were writing today is a service, but Feathers could generate us the service. Today we've written it on bare hand, but basically if I type this command, that's basically what Feathers doing. It's creating what we did today. I want to be able to connect to a Mongo database through Mongoose, an ORM. It's okay if you don't know that. Let's name that service called electrical data, because it's like an electrical sensor data or service. Want to expose that. And our connection string, you have this connection string over here. Just paste that. Now it's going to generate us the services folder. So this folder that we created, so your class, your hooks, your service, and also database connections. And in the database connection, we want to be able to point this specific schema to our collection. So this collection. So I'm just repointing that. It's okay if you don't understand that one. I'm just demoing it to you how fast you could create prototypes with feathers. So this is the schema. It has a device name, a type, and from a collection. Now, we're just waiting if it's finished. Yeah, we're just waiting for this thing to finish. It's okay. It's almost done. All right, there we go. Now let's run this application, and that's run using npm run start. So let's just see where it ran. It's going to be running at port 3030 localhost, and let's go to that specific service. I think it's electrical sensor service. Oh, it's not displaying it correctly. Let's just check our things. Is this correct? Oh yes, this is called test. From memory, just run that again. Okay, there we go. It's creating a, it's exposing that database to our REST APIs. And take a look, this is actually a page. Maybe, let's say for example, we only want like 3 things. We could say this one is equal to 3. It's only going to give us 3 data points. Maybe we want 30, and maybe we want to skip the first 10. We could do it like that. Maybe we only want the ones that has a temperature that is above 20, I guess. So let's just copy that one. So let's put that MX temperature and says greater than is equal to 20. See, 1496, skipping the 10 and a limit of 30. So I guess that's how easy it is to create a Feathers application that is connected to a database. And with that REST APIs, you could immediately connect your front end directly. And it's even supporting with sockets. So if you need real-time data transfer. So how long was that? 7 minutes, and I'm explaining it while creating that. So I guess that's the biggest reason as why you would choose Feathers to create your backend, because it's easy. So for next one that we want to talk about to end this discussion is what's your pathway for the future after learning Feathers, or basically the related learning. So Feathers, as you know, it's a backend wrapper. It basically extends the functionality of Express. It's going to be a good idea if you know how Express actually works at the server. So I've explained it on basic in this workshop with Node.js. So I think it's a good opportunity for you to learn the fundamentals for that one. Database systems as well, because you might, you always want your server application to be connected to a database. So today, with this demo, I actually connected it with the Mongo database using Mongoose. You might also want to learn Google Firebase. So the way how Google Firebase works is that it also works like services. So it can grab your real-time data using that similar approach as Feathers. So the theory with this concept, you have your communication theory, the network communications, the WebSockets, the HTTP requests, and REST APIs. Also another portion is software structure. Because most of the time, if you're going to have big softwares, front ends, back ends, that's going to be a big software. You're going to divide that into multiple folders, and you're going to have a software structure. So like you've seen here in the generated application that Feathers did, there's multiple folders divided into different things. You have your models for your database connections, your middlewares, your services, and so on. And also other. Most of the time, you're going to connect your server with the front end. So you're going to learn a little bit of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, like we did today. And also for advanced portion of it, you're going to pick some frameworks to work with it. The package manager, as you've seen today, we were actually using packages like Express that is extended by Feathers, Socket.io, and Feathers itself. So it's a good idea to learn how to use the package managers, what does it do, how it works, where it saves the file, and also debugging once when things happen. You might also want to do some hosting. So the demo that I had for today were actually hosted in Heroku. So you might want to think about that one or learn something about it. And also JavaScript. The reason why it's in gaps because it's really important to learn JavaScript, especially for web development, because after all, it is the language of the web. You can use it for front end and a back end. So here's the references for the workshop, the Feathers services, coding with, I forgot the channel, but it's that one. This is the slide. This is the code for the workshop for today. The code for the other demo with the authentication, a better interface, and a local database. And yeah, Any questions? Any question, guys? Why? Cool things. Hey guys, in Zoom, do you have any questions? Okay. Is it okay? I have a question here called: is it possible to remove messages as an added feature? What do you mean by remove messages as an added feature? Oh, a deleting message. Yes, we can do that. So I guess let's try to extend actually what we have today. Yes, let's actually try that one. So let's, I think it's async remove. I guess let's get a data and let's get it ID. So, and then we're going to do this one, this dot messages dot pop. We're going to pop that ID specifically. And then we're going to return that one. So let's get that message. Let's pop that message, then return that message. So, and then in the front end,
I think you might have to get the index of the message in your twice that.
I think it pops the index of that.
Yeah, but it won't always get that index.
Oh yeah.
So just do something just stuff index of.
Index off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Index off.
And then go back. It's like a for each.
I think let's just pop a specific index. That's easier. Just so that I could demonstrate this question. Okay? Because I want to be able to demonstrate this one. So let's add that message. And let's actually try to remove that message. How? Good idea. We are going to be using Postman to simulate a remove request or delete requests. Let's just wait for that one. So basically, this is index 0, this is index 1, index 3. So let's just try that one. Let's put messages here. And it's going to be a delete operation. And we're going to be deleting the third index. And something I forgot is a socket for deletion. So let's just go back to that one. App.service. Oh yeah, actually. Yeah, let's just refresh it. So it removed that one. But if you want it to remove it in real time, you're going to do something like that. App.service messages that remove on remove. I think on remove. And then you're gonna have a function here that basically finds that specific item and removes it. Does that answer your question, Erin? Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? All right, everyone good? I guess that's the end of our workshop. I hope you had fun, guys.